Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we're going to be talking about the prospects for the Metroid series in both the year 2020, this year, and beyond. So the reason we're talking about this now is because just recently we got some news about a rumor about a 2D Metroid potentially coming out this year. But not only that, we're going to be going into the implications of this 2D Metroid for Prime Trilogy, and by extension Prime 4, but also we're going to be getting into a little bit of speculation for another Metroid character making it into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So then, what about this 2D Metroid rumor? What's going on? So this rumor is coming from both Zippo on Reset Era and Sabby on Twitter. Basically, it's being said that this 2D Metroid is potentially coming this year, and it's related to Metroid Fusion. Now, some are interpreting this to mean a remake for Metroid Fusion, which I would be entirely for because of the two Metroid games I've never finished. One of them is Metroid Fusion. I could just never get around to finishing it on the Game Boy way back when, so I would love another chance to actually do it, and this time the game would be even better with some quality of life enhancements, redone 3D graphics, of course still the 2D side-scrolling style, and probably being made by Mercury Steam. I think they did a great job with Metroid Samus Returns, so if Mercury Steam is at it again making a Metroid Fusion remake, I think it could be really awesome, and I honestly think that this could be kind of like the big 2D release for the year, kind of like how Link's Awakening was a big 2D release for last year. And actually I would say that a Metroid Fusion remake would have me even more excited than Link's Awakening. Even though I did enjoy Link's Awakening, I thought it was a pretty good game, I think a Metroid Fusion remake would go over really well with a lot of people. However, there's another possibility with this rumor. It doesn't have to be a remake. It's being said that it's related to Metroid Fusion. That doesn't mean it's a remake. It could maybe be a sequel to Metroid Fusion, which would then make this game Metroid 5, an actual continuation of the Metroid storyline. We're finally going to make it past the Metroid Fusion part of the story and be progressing the storyline for Metroid, which hasn't really happened in many years since Metroid Fusion, which would be amazing, and I'd be all for that. And I would still expect Mercury Steam to be behind it, so I think they could do a great job. I think Metroid Samus Returns was a fantastic 2D Metroid game, so with a new 2D Metroid game in the works, if Mercury Steam is handling it with the backing by Nintendo, I think this would be a very exciting game to see, especially if it comes out this year. But if this new Metroid game comes out this year, what would that mean for Metroid Prime Trilogy? Would Nintendo actually put two different Metroid games out in the same year? Well, I think they could, because a 2D Metroid game is an entirely different kind of game compared to Metroid Prime. The Metroid Prime series is a first-person action-adventure series with shooting elements, as opposed to a 2D Metroidvania. These are two completely different kinds of games, so I think both could fit in the same year, especially if they're split into the first half and second half of the year. I'm personally hoping the Metroid Prime Trilogy is announced in the next Nintendo Direct, be it at the end of this month or next month, and it comes out, say, around the May time. I think that could happen. And then maybe 2D Metroid is shown off later, and that comes out, say, around September, kind of like Link's Awakening. I think that could happen, and that would make tons of sense, and it would go over really well. I mean, we've seen Nintendo do something like this in the past. For example, we got a new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and then like just 5 months later, Mario Maker 2 came out. These are both 2D Mario games, and the gameplay for these games are far more similar than a 2D Metroid and a Metroid Prime Trilogy. So I definitely think it could happen, but it also might not happen, and I think it really comes down to where Metroid Prime 4 is in development. So I've been making the bold prediction that Metroid Prime 4 will be teased at this year's E3, kind of like how Breath of the Wild 2 was teased at last year's E3. I think there's a chance of that, and if that actually happens, it wouldn't shock me if Metroid Prime 4 ends up coming out holiday 2021. I think there's a legitimate chance of that. Granted, it really just depends on how far into development they actually are. They may need a little bit more time, and maybe the game won't come out until holiday 2022. That could for sure happen. But if it is actually coming out holiday 2021, as I'm suggesting with my prediction, then I think it would make more sense for Prime Trilogy to come out this year to bring in new fans to the Metroid Prime series, show them what a first-person adventure Metroid is all about, and then sort of excite them and hype them up leading into Metroid Prime 4. I think there's definitely a possibility of this, and I could sort of see a situation where Nintendo is going to try to build up the Metroid brand again and really hype it up and hopefully push the Metroid series to new heights in terms of sales. Quality-wise, the Metroid series has always been there. It's always been very comparable to both Zelda and Mario, but in terms of sales, it's always paled in comparison. But I don't think Nintendo wants it to be like that. I think they want Metroid to sell well. Why wouldn't they? And actually, I think if you look at the way Metroid Prime 4 was delayed, with the way Nintendo handled that, that was just like Breath of the Wild. The only other time Nintendo had a dedicated video to announce the delay of a major game was Breath of the Wild, and then of course Metroid Prime 4. They are comparing these games. I think the quality standard that they have for the Metroid Prime series is just like the mainline Legend of Zelda. So they want to push this series, so I think Nintendo is going to be very careful about how they're marketing the Metroid series, and I think that has a big reason to do with why we haven't seen Metroid Prime Trilogy yet. I think that both this 2D Metroid game and Prime Trilogy are going to be used to sort of keep the Metroid name in the spotlight, or at least in the minds of gamers, and really lead into Metroid Prime 4 when that's finally revealed and when it finally comes out. But I also think there's a chance that Nintendo may use something else to further boost the actual franchise that is Metroid, and what they're going to use for that is the power of Smash Bros. Just like Fire Emblem and other game series, Nintendo could use Super Smash Bros. To help push the popularity of Metroid. Now, how would they do that? Well, the most obvious way is by including another character in the DLC. So the inclusion of Byleth from Fire Emblem Three Houses in Smash Ultimate as a part of the final pack in the first Fighters Pass tells us two really major things in relation to Metroid. One, that Nintendo is definitely willing to put in first-party characters, and two, they're willing to shamelessly put in a character that will purely market and push another game series that they have going on. So, maybe they will do the same with Metroid, except this time it'll probably be more warmly received because there aren't that many Metroid characters, and I think a lot of people would really appreciate another Metroid character as opposed to another Fire Emblem character. But just to be clear, I do like Byleth, but I understand that, people are annoyed by the whole situation. But anyway, Sylux is the character I have in mind. Why Sylux? Well, we already got Ridley, and we already have a couple versions of Samus. There aren't that many really popular characters in the Metroid series, but Sylux is kind of one of them. He's another bounty hunter who has a rivalry with Samus. He is teased to be following Samus at the end of Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. There's another teaser for Metroid Prime 4 at the end of Federation Force where Sylux steals an egg, and this is all meant to build up into the events leading into Metroid Prime 4, where we know Sylux has some sort of dynamic there and could be a very important character. So with the potential reveal for Metroid Prime 4 maybe this year, and what I assume is the inevitable release for Metroid Prime Trilogy either this year or next year, I think it would make a lot of sense to perhaps have Sylux added into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as a part of the Volume 2 Fighters Pass. I think there's a chance of that, and I think it could be a really unique character and would go over really well with fans and also help to push the Metroid series. I'm bringing this all up because I think there's a chance it could happen, but of course, I'm just talking about a chance here. It's possible that there's another character that's added instead. There's so many characters that could be added for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, but Sylux would definitely make a lot of sense. And considering what's going on with Metroid right now, with the need of needing to push the series to greater heights in terms of sales, with Metroid Prime 4 being in development, with hopefully the inevitable release of Prime Trilogy, and these 2D Metroid rumors, it would be a great time to have Sylux come out as Smash DLC all together, because that would all help to push the series, and a lot of Metroid fans would be very, very happy about all of this. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this 2D Metroid rumor. Is it actually Metroid 5, a Metroid Fusion Remake, or something else? And also let me know if you think we could see Prime Trilogy this year alongside the 2D Metroid, or perhaps we'll have to wait a little bit longer, as well as your thoughts on the potential reveal for Metroid Prime 4 and maybe even Sylux added to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Anyways everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.